So like I've been using Claude Code for a while, and I've been using Cursor, and I've been using everything. And like right now, I think like Claude Code is the best, and it's because of this experience I've had in the past week. So I know like Anthropic and all those companies, like they love to hype up agentic coding. They're like, we have a 500 billion evaluation. Like agentic coding is the future. You're gonna write everything with that, and I think they're definitely overselling it. But I do think that there are like lots of merits to doing agentic coding, and I think in this last week I've been able to be extraordinarily productive because of this. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is what shouldn't you vibe code? So I think like a mistake that people make, the biggest mistake is that they want to do something, but they're not really sure of what they want to do. And they kind of like talk to the AI and they kind of like try to formulate this plan at the same time as you're implementing. And I think that is the wrong approach. Like, if you don't know what you want to code, I don't think you should vibe code. I think like you need to understand in your brain what you want the system to do before you tell the system what to do. And so like I give an example here, like you can't tell like like Claude to like solve the P versus NP like millennial problem. Like there's no way it's going to do that. Or even more so, like even if it's not as hard as a problem, but you don't really have like a way to attack it. Like if you're like, oh, I want to make a better PPO, like I don't think your result would be very good. So what is a good fit at vibe coding? I think like if I know what I want my software to do, and I don't have a software that does it, but I know like very specifically, very concretely what I want to do, I think that is the perfect use case for vibe coding. And to be honest with you, I very rarely write code by hand these days. I mostly just tell it incredibly scoped tasks. And I think like how scoped your task is gonna result in the quality of outputting code. Like if you tell an LLM exactly what to do, I want to make a function that has these three arguments, these four outputs, and I want this exact thing to happen in the function. I would make the case that it's pretty hard for it to screw up. I mean, like it's going to screw up, but like you can verify, right? So the more scoped, the better. And I think writing tests is incredibly helpful for vibe coding. So like in undergrad at Northeastern, they really emphasize the importance of writing unit tests. And I always hated this. Like I'd do my homework assignment and then like I'd have my partner do the unit tests. And I kind of like would avoid them like they're the plague. You know, all the places I worked, I've done my best to not write unit tests. But AI really sucks. And so like if you don't write the unit tests, like I think that it is hard to have an LLM work on a large code base because it'll change this one thing here to get this one thing done. And it's like a house of cards. You want to know when your house of cards collapses. And so that's really the purpose of unit tests. And I don't write my unit tests. I have the AI write the unit tests to verify that it works. I mean, I read it and make sure it's good. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Like, if you're reading the output of the AI and you're like, I have no idea what the hell's going on, like, I don't think that's a good situation. I think that, like, if you don't understand what's going on, maybe you should do some research on the task that you're wanting to complete. But if you understand what's going on and the AI is giving you garbage outputs, I think that's actually good because you can say, hey, this is garbage, this is why. Okay. And so again, these apply to just basic vibe coding, but we'll get to the agentic stuff. Okay. So what is an agent? Like, I think they overhype this. And so what an agent really is it's just like a really fancy system prompt. And you can specialize in agents. So like an example is I might have an agent that is like the solutions architect agent. And to make this agent, what I do is I write a system prompt. You are an expert software engineer with 100 years experience writing scalable systems. And so every single time you call that agent, it's just an LLM that has that system prompt. And another thing about agents, like why does this agentic coding work? Like why does having these agents specialize be better than just having one model where you tell it to do? And I think it's all about context. I think when you have, for example, Claude, you have, like 200,000 characters or tokens of context. If you give it instructions like all the way at the beginning and then you talk to it for a while, I think it forgets its instructions. But with the context of the agent, when you call it, it injects that system prompt. And I think it's less likely to forget like what's going on. And so also with the context, when you talk to an LLM, at least for me, like my chats with Claude are huge, right? And so there's a lot of context for it to parse to. But when you specifically call an agent, you call an agent to complete a specific task. So the context is much, much smaller. So it makes sense that these agents are able to do this specialization. And I think a big part of that is to do with the context window that it has. Another really cool thing about agents is you can parallelize tasks. So you can say, I have these 5 different tasks. I want to spawn 5 different copies of the same agent, go. And I think this is really great because like me personally, like I get a little bored when I'm like waiting for it to do something. So I like to work on several things at once, which honestly I wouldn't recommend, but it's entertaining. So like you do you. Okay. And the last thing is that like people ask me, how do you call the agent? Like how do you have Claude actually call the agent to do the thing? And you just specify that in natural language. So you might say, hey Claude, I want to call this agent to do this thing. Then after that, I want to call this other agent to do this other thing. Okay. And the command in Claude is /agents. And I'm going to try to put my money where my mouth is and do some agentic coding live in front of you guys after this. Okay. Okay, so the basic agent workflow that I think is kind of like the thing that most people do is to have one agent responsible for high-level planning, and this is typically the most expensive model that you can afford. So like Opus 4.1 or Sonnet 4.5. Then you have another agent that's responsible for execution only, and then you have another agent that's responsible for tests. And so it's kind of this like separation of excellence. And I think that this actually can help prevent like hallucinations because it's all about context. Like your implementation agent isn't thinking about how to orchestrate the system. It's just thinking about how to follow the instructions to implement the system. So I kind of think it's like the way I think about it is like it's easy to focus on one thing. It's hard to focus on 5 things. So the separation of excellence I find is really key. And I like to give my agents fun names. So like my favorite one is the Test Titan. So I'm like, hey, call the Test Titan and write a nice suite for me to do this. Okay. And then the best part of agentic coding is make agents for what your other agents suck at. And like an example of this is like Claude loves to make up methods that don't exist. Like I'll be using, for example, NumPy or PyTorch or Open3D, and it'll invent some really great method that doesn't exist. And so I have an agent specifically for this called the docs lover. And I'm like, okay, whenever it calls a method that doesn't exist, I'm like, call the docs lover to go look up what method exists and coordinate with that. And you can kind of apply these patches. And I found that the failure modes are pretty systematic. So the docs lover is one of the failure modes. Another failure mode is like agents love to make God objects, which is an object that is responsible for everything. You know, they'll have a single object that does visualization and computation and like user input output. And like not only does this violate good software engineering practices, it is a really good way to get a spaghetti mess. And like I think like when people are against agentic coding, they're against the spaghetti mess that it produces at the end. And so a strategy that I've come up with is I have 2 agents. One of them I call the tightly coupled hunter, and it has a system prompt relating exactly to this. Another one I have is called the bloat killer, where it specifically searches for duplication. Claude really loves to like recode a method that you already have in your code base just because it doesn't have that context or it doesn't find it. Okay. And then agents are orchestrated with natural language, and you can do really cool stuff like having it spawn a bunch of agents in parallel to work on tasks. I just caution you not to have them work on tasks that are too similar because they'll step on each other's toes. And another strategy I really like to do is I have the agent write documentation in .md files as it's completing the task so that I can like go away from my computer and then come back and just read what it did. Okay. So that is the presentation, and I'm going to show you guys some prompts that I have here for my agents. Okay. So I recommend like keeping track of your prompts so that you can like paste them into new systems. But here are a few of mine. I have the architect, which does the planning. And then I started out with having the bloat killer and the tightly coupled hunter be the same agent, but I actually found that it got confused. So I'd recommend having an individual bloat killer and an individual tightly coupled hunter. There are a few ones I really like. The Sui worker bee. I always spawn like a few copies of these. Or for example, we have the executor, which actually implements the code. Or something that really makes me upset is the type hinting of the models are oftentimes for a very outdated version of Python. So I have an agent that is specifically just for type hinting, and I really hate non-empty init py files. Like I think all init py files should be empty, and so like I have an agent that is responsible for this. And then another one I like is I have the team of historians, which reads all the MDs and try to figure out what the hell I did with my code base. Okay, and like I said, like the key step here is that you have to read the output and you have to tell the model like what it's doing wrong. Like without that, like it's just not gonna work. Okay, so I figured that we could do some like agentic coding. Like yeah, Mingxi.
Oh, yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, how do like two agents like work with each other? Like, how does like what's the definition for an agent here? Is it just like something you define in one chat in one context, where they actually have new like two new like kind of different chats?
It's like a new chat with each of the individual contexts.
Okay, and then you don't need to do that yourself. Like,
Yeah,
you just maintain it like internally.
you like you don't do anything yourself. You specify everything as just like a natural language goal.
Okay.
Any other questions before we do a quick example here? Okay, so I figured that like we could do an example live, and like I don't think we'll get something that works because like I said, you have to iterate for a while. But I think maybe it'll give you guys like a good idea of kind of like what this workflow looks like. Okay. So as you can see, I was already like doing it a lot. Like okay. 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 So I've made a folder that is completely empty, and we're gonna run Claude. Okay. So in terms of actually making the agents, you type like /agents, and you get this window, and you can see I already have a bunch of these agents. And the really cool thing is that you can specify like what model size the agent is. So I mean, we can create a new agent right now, and so you can choose to store it in the project or in the personal. I store it in the personal. I always generate it with Claude. What this does is it pretty much like upsamples the prompt. So like if you write a really short description, it turns into a really long description, and for some reason that works really well. Okay, so like then I'll go like I'd like to make a software okay, and then it generates the agent for the description. You can select what model, and I for example, like for the agents that are doing high level planning, I always select the biggest model. Okay, so it usually takes a little while. So I'm just going to cancel this, but you select the model and you like select what color it is. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to restart it. Okay, and we're going to use the agents they already have. Okay, so like we're talking about like inference delay, right? Okay, so I'd like to make and like I said, scoping, like you want to have like a prompt that like describes everything you want to do. Okay. Um, okay, and then I always like have it read something. Like for example, like if we're trying to replicate this kind of in a simple way, like I'll literally tell it what to read. Like in the historian is like an agent that I have. Have the historian read this. Have the architect come up with a plan. Have the
specific to Claude or just the way that you're doing separation of ideas?
what? Sorry.
Like the use of semicolons in this.
Oh no, that's just something separation ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have the test tighten. Right. Test, or actually, test suite, and then have suite worker bees implement the architect's plan. Okay. And then I actually get rate limited on the really big models. So I have an architect V2, which is just like the architect with the smaller models. Okay. And then you just chill. But then you gotta review the output, in like 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So will they be able to call each other in the round like spontaneous?
Yeah.
Oh, so how so they would just generate prompts to call each other.
Yeah, so like right now, like this is enough information for it to use all of the agents that I've mentioned. And you can, if you're feeling dangerous, you can put it into Shift Tab, which is like accept edits on. What I will say is like be really careful with your Git history, guys, because like I have like a refactor agent that I didn't like specify the prompt well, and it did like a git reset hard where it wipes all of the non-stashed commits. Luckily, it didn't delete the repo, but yeah, and then see, so it used the project historian to look up the thing, and then see, it's already calling the solutions architect to come up with the plan.
Is there a way to rework the change?
Like you say good job or something like that?
No, like if you find that something is done wrongly by the agents, like is there like some manual way to rework the change that the agent has made?
Yeah, so yeah, there's a way. I forget what the keyboard shortcut is, but there's a way to like revert like previous chat histories, because it snapshots the entire like repo at each prompt. So I forget what the like keyboard shortcut is, but like there's a way to do it. Yeah, and you can also use something called Git work trees to have like several agents work in parallel on like different things. Yeah.
These models pre-trained or they're just provided by the different models?
Yeah, so it's just fully pre-trained, and the only thing you're doing with the agent is you're describing what you want it to do.
Fully pre-trained.
No, I just it's zero shot. I give it a prompt. Yeah. Mingxi?
If Architect V2 is better, why keep V1?
Oh, sorry. So the Architect V2 is actually worse. So in Claude, there are like crazy rate limits for their best model. Their best model is Opus, and I actually have the $200 a month plan, and I'm out of Opus, so I can show you. Like this is the problem, is that they like really rope you into this shit. Like, oh man. So like you can see,
Max plan?
yeah. So like I've already used all my Opus for this week, so I have a Solutions Architect V2 that is the non-Opus version. Yeah, Garth. Yeah, I think you can do it in Cursor. And I was like my first vibe coding experience was with Cursor, but then I found that like Cursor, like they really degrade the quality of the output over time. Like I found that Cursor a year ago was incredible, and then Cursor now, for me, it's like unusable. Like I really think that they like rate limited the crap out of it. So yes, you can use Cursor, but my personal experience has been that Claude is by far the best.
You sure it's Cursor or it's like getting used to?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think it is Cursor because I don't have the same problems with Claude. Like, and I used to not have the same problems with Cursor. And that being said, I've never tried the agents thing in Cursor, so maybe it's just really good. Yeah, I don't know. Up to personal preference. Yeah.
So how much do you use like you know like how can those class?
Yeah. So this they have like a really dumb weekly limit. So like you can see like this will get reset on Monday.
Oh, okay.
And then they also have like a current session limit, but with the max plan, you don't run into this. But the way they scam me into buying the max plan is I kept on running into this with the cheaper ones.
Just to gauge how much code resulted in you hitting the Opus limit.
Yeah, it was about 56,000 lines of code. Yeah, so I can show you guys. So like what I've been working on this week is I've been working on a like generalizable way to compose neural networks, and I've been doing that largely through Claude. And I've written all of this code in the last week, and it's 59,000. So I can show you like real quick though, like the actual composition of this code. So I always have it write these MD files just so it can remember what's going on like between sessions. So like I have one write for tension, or like I have one like for how the attention nodes are designed, or like the final plan from the refactor, and like most of this is like in the thing. But then you can see that in terms of the diff on the left, like most of the code is actually in tests, because like it just like the thing that I do is like whenever it runs into an error, I have it write a test that is like the minimal test to reproduce that error, and it makes a lot of mistakes. But as you go, you come up with this test suite that is like more and more robust to testing your thing. Yeah, so it's mostly just tests, but yeah, I wrote this in the last week. And we can also check back and see what's going on here. So you can see it's calling the test titan at the same time that it's calling the worker bee. And then this will probably do some stuff. And then also you can do Control O to see what it's thinking. So you can see it's like running all this stuff. So like and then you see the prompt, like this is automatically done. Like I didn't do this. Like it's like, oh, complete the plan, like done by the architect. All right, and then that's all I really had for today. I mean, we can wait until it like does stuff, but like I don't want to waste your guys' time. Any other questions or things you want to ask? No.
It was like the high-level orchestration stuff where it was managing how to prompt those sub agents. Can you modify that part of it? Like, can you have it orchestrate differently?
Yeah, you do it through natural language. You just tell it.
Just through that original prompt, or is it something you can do?
Yeah, so I've experimented with having agents that like in their system prompt know how to call other agents.
Oh,
I haven't been able to do that successfully so far, but it has been very successful. And I'm like, call this agent, like it calls the agent, and like the workflow. I can show you guys like some of my past chats too. Like you get into this really nice workflow where like Claude does something, it messes up, and then you have an agent that is for that specific mess up, and you're like, call the agent. Like you don't even tell it how it messed up. You just tell it, call the agent. Like so for me, like I very often like I read the code, I'm like, oh, call the loosely coupled hunter. Like and it knows how to fix it. Like it's done pretty well.
Did it run code? Like did it write a file and then test it?
Yeah, so what I have on that right now, it can run commands from the command line, and like there's a mode where if you do like shift tab planning mode, it'll ask you before you run the command, yes, no, tell Claude what to do differently. To be honest with you, I kind of just put it on like the you can do whatever you want mode, but that's dangerous. But yeah, it can run code. I think
How do you navigate in that massive code base that's you just did, like the 50 some solid one?
Yeah, so like this is where the bloat killer and the loosely coupled hunter, and this is where knowing how to do software engineering becomes critical. Like it's hard to navigate the code base, but that is oftentimes a piece of feedback that I give the model. Is I say, dude, where the hell is the top level module that like tells me what's going on? And I tell it to write a top level module. And then when it writes a top level module, then I just do like similarly to how I read code. I like control click on stuff. And oftentimes I'll see a method where it has like some complete garbage. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And the name of the method. Yeah. Bennett?
I don't know. Did you still have?
Yeah. So I guess with like increased number of agent, like and then increase the usage exponentially because the agent was reading the documentation would take something and then maybe output a lot of things and then feed it into another agent to tell what's going on in the documentation, and that you couldn't control that the output of that agent, right?
Yeah, I've honestly felt that like this is where the scopeness is very critical, and I think that like I haven't really experienced that issue just because I scope my tasks well. And when it's churning from a while, like see it's running like a bunch of stuff, you can like control C and be like, why the hell is this taking so long? Like, what are you working on? Like, you can always control O and like look at the stuff. Yeah, Bennett.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the degree that you're specifying what you want and what level you're doing that at.
Yeah.
Are you specifying aspects of the software engineering design or just feature level requirements?
Yeah, I do everything. So like I oftentimes start with kind of like a general overview, and I'll often have to give it architectural hints. So like a great example is like something it'll always do is it'll come up with like a really dumb registry where it has like a string mapped to an object, and it's like just keep a list of the objects and then have like a dot underscore name attribute of the object. So it's like stuff like that where it makes really dumb architectural mistakes, but if you tell it the architecture that you want, it's pretty good at interpreting. So yeah, I oftentimes have to like my prompts are pretty long, and I give like a very detailed thing, and I oftentimes like as it's completing the detailed thing, I'll be like, okay, the overall plan is good, but the way you're doing this is like completely wrong. Yes.
Last question about the pricing, I guess.
Yeah.
Say if I want to try this night with like just to have to get a sense of like how well this is. Like I believe they have like different plans. Like what would you recommend? For a starter?
Yeah, so they have 3 tiers. One is $20 a month, one is $100 a month, and one is $200 a month. And I think the $20 a month is more than enough to start playing around with this. Yeah. I think you will run into the usage limit. And so like what I experienced is I started playing around with the $20 a month. And before I learned how to do agents, or like here in a second. Yeah, before I learned how to do agents, like the $20 a month was fine. Then I started doing agents and I blew through my $100 a month in like 2 hours. So like, because they set it up so that the 100 a month is 5 times the limit of the base, but then the 200 a month is 20 times the limit. And so they really like funnel you into one of the two options.